Esau I hated, Jacob I loved. What God truly meant. These statements in Scripture have caused as much confusion and debate. Romans 9:13, where Paul quotes God saying, Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated. Read without context, these words can sound harsh and even contradictory to the character of a loving and just God. How can the same God who commands love speak of hatred? To understand this statement correctly, we must go deeper than the surface reading and allow Scripture to interpret Scripture. Jacob and Esau were twin brothers born to Isaac and Rebekah. From the beginning, their paths were different. Esau, the firstborn, was a skilled hunter, a man of the field, driven by appetite and impulse. Jacob, the younger, was more inward, contemplative, and drawn toward spiritual inheritance. These differences were not merely personality traits. They reflected two different value systems. Esau valued the immediate and tangible, while Jacob desired the covenant and the promise, even though he often pursued it in flawed ways. The defining moment in Esau's story comes when he sells his birthright for a single meal. Scripture tells us plainly that Esau despised his birthright. This was not just a bad decision made out of hunger, it revealed a heart that did not place value on God's covenant. The birthright represented spiritual authority, covenantal blessing, and alignment with God's redemptive plan. Esau willingly exchanged that for temporary satisfaction, showing where his priorities truly lay. When God later says, Esau I hated, he is not expressing emotional hatred as humans understand it. In the biblical world, especially in Hebrew thought, the word translated as hate often means to reject in terms of role, priority, or covenantal purpose. It is a comparative term, not an emotional one. To love one and hate another is to choose one for a specific purpose over the other. Jesus himself uses this kind of language when he says that anyone who does not hate father and mother cannot be his disciple, clearly meaning priority rather than literal hatred. God loved Jacob in the sense that he chose Jacob's lineage to carry the covenant promise that would eventually lead to the Messiah. God hated Esau in the sense that Esau's lineage was not chosen for that covenantal role. This choice was not based on moral superiority because Jacob was deeply flawed, deceptive, and often fearful. Rather, it was based on God's sovereign purpose in salvation history. Importantly, God's rejection of Esau for the covenant line did not mean abandonment, neglect, or lack of care. Scripture makes it very clear that God also came through for Esau and his descendants. In Genesis, God blesses Esau with prosperity, land, and a powerful lineage. Esau becomes the father of the Edomites, a nation that grows strong and established. Esau himself acknowledges that he has enough, showing that he was not left destitute or cursed. Later in Israel's history, God explicitly commands the Israelites not to despise or attack the Edomites, calling them brothers because they came from Esau. God instructs Israel not to take Edomite land, declaring that he had given Mount Seir to Esau as a possession. This shows unmistakably that God remained concerned with Esau's lineage, honoring his promises and protecting what he had allotted to them. A God who truly hated Esau in the human sense would not defend his descendants or establish them securely in their own land. Even when Edom later falls into judgment, that judgment is based on their actions, pride, and violence, not on some ancient divine grudge. Just as Israel faced judgment when they rebelled, Edom too was held accountable for their choices. God's justice is consistent and impartial. His dealings with nations are always tied to righteousness, not favoritism rooted in emotion. Paul's use of this phrase in Romans 9 is not meant to portray God as cruel or arbitrary. Paul is addressing the question of why the Messiah came through Israel and not through other nations. His point is that God's covenant promises have always operated according to divine purpose, not human expectation or natural birth order. God's choice of Jacob over Esau demonstrates that salvation history unfolds by God's will, not by human entitlement. When understood this way, Jacob I loved, Esau I hated, is not a statement about worth, salvation, or God's emotional disposition toward individuals. It is a declaration about purpose, calling, and covenant. God did not love Jacob because Jacob was better, nor did he reject Esau because Esau was irredeemable. God assigned different roles, and both men lived out the consequences of their choices within those roles. This truth carries a powerful lesson for believers today. God's love does not mean everyone receives the same assignment, but it does mean everyone remains under his care. Some are chosen for specific purposes, while others are blessed in different ways. Being chosen does not mean being more loved, and being unchosen for a particular role does not mean being hated or forgotten. Ultimately, God's dealings with Jacob and Esau reveal a God who is sovereign, just, and faithful. He fulfills his redemptive plan through chosen vessels, yet he remains attentive to all people. His words, when read carefully and humbly, do not reveal cruelty, but wisdom. They call us to look beyond human emotion and understand divine purpose. Subscribe for more teaching and learning. See you on the side of victory.